Nancy, can you start by introducing yourself and telling us a bit about your professional background?
Sure. Well, first of all, thanks for having me. I'm Nancy MacIntyre. I'm the CEO of WorldWinner. We're the really pioneer in skill gaming, which is real money competitive gaming. I have actually been active in gaming since 1995. I started out in the kid space with Broderbund Software doing Where in the World is Carmen San Diego and Mist, and then moved from there to be an early employee at Hasbro Interactive, where we brought over 100 Hasbro and Atari games to the digital world, which was really an incredible experience to be there in the beginning. And then I moved over to the dark side or the force, depending on how you call it, at Lucasfilm, where I worked on online games for Star Wars, so Star Wars Galaxies, and then ultimately running global sales and marketing there. And then my love for kids games sort of won out again and moved back over to the toy and game space in education at Leapfrog Enterprises, where I was making games that taught kids to read and write and just love learning. And along about that time, the iPhone came out, and it became clear to me that mobile was going to become the platform of choice, not just for children, but for everybody, and started a company in the mobile tech space called Fingerprint, which was really like the first Netflix for games for kids, and ran that for 10 years before exiting. And then I kind of went from nice to vice and joined WorldWinner to work on real money gaming back in, I guess, 2021 at this point, and I've been here ever since, really enjoying that.
Amazing. I mean, you've touched on leading successful direct to consumer gaming businesses across multiple platforms there. What's your approach in building monetization systems that scale across casual, mid core, and competitive player segments without alienating any one group?
Yeah, that's a great question. People always ask me that. And, when I'm advising anyone else, I always say, hey, you really have to think about monetization because great games without monetization are not so great in the commercial world. But the reality is, I always start with what's fun for the player. If the product isn't fun, it's going to be impossible to monetize it. And at World Winner, it really starts with the games. What's the hook in that game that makes people want to play it? What kind of tournament type is likely to be most engaging? Is it multiplayer? Is it head to head? Is it progressive? And once we know that it's fun and engaging, I look for customer behaviors. Like, what kind of player is it? How do they like to play? Are they locking in every day, or are they binge playing? Are they spending a lot of small dollar tournaments or one big tournaments? And once we really understand more about the consumer, you can begin to build your monetization strategy. Because when you look at like a high-end VIP player that spends $100 in your game, whether they spend $100 on one tournament is very different than spending $100 on a $101 tournament. So the monetization really starts with that combination between fun and understanding a lot about the player and what their behaviors are. And then the monetization really comes from that, but it starts with the fun.
Yeah, absolutely. At World Winner, you've connected real money mechanics with the nostalgic brand forward IPs. What have you learned about balancing real stakes with entertainment value, especially for audiences that are casual but still want a sense of competition?
Yeah. Like I said before, it really always starts with the fun. Would the player like the game if it's free, no matter what the brand is? And so, let's take World of Fortune, which has been on World Winner for, I think, more than 8 years. That's a very well known play pattern, but bringing it into competitive play means altering some of the mechanics so it's familiar. Like, you're choosing the letters, you're buying the vowels, you're solving the puzzles, but there has to be a sense of challenge and there has to be a sense of the skill progression that you have in Real Money gave me. Believe me, your heart really starts to race when you come to the bonus round and there's real money on the table. And as a player, you get the rush as if you were really in the show because there's real money on the table. Having a cash component, having skin in the game really makes it seem real. So as you begin to think about bringing real IP into these products, like the IP and the gameplay pattern is first, and it has to be fun first, and then finding ways to make it competitive in a way that feels true and authentic to the product.
Absolutely. And you've taken games from concept through scaling and acquisition. How do you evaluate product marketing alignment early on when a game is likely to attract a blend of light casuals and high intensity VIPs?
Yeah, that is interesting, and I'm not sure that my philosophy aligns with the way everyone in the gaming industry thinks about it, but my philosophy is that you will get VIPs if you can make the gameplay engaging to most people. So it starts again with the fun and the engagement being appealing to everybody. I don't think that you should market a game to attract VIPs. The VIPs will self-identify. They will choose themselves because they find a game so compelling and they love it so much, and they see in competitive gaming that their skill is progressing. That's giving them confidence that they should keep playing because they think they can win. In the end, with skill gaming and all real money gaming, becoming a VIP tends to happen organically because they're building their skill level, they start winning, it encourages them to play more, and they start playing up from a tournament entry fee perspective. Now, the same is true for more casual players. It's finding what gets them excited and what keeps them playing. On WorldWinner, we use a series of system goals and rewards that are targeted at various user segments that are, again, appropriate for the user segment. For example, a casual player might get a goal that says, play 5 cash games and win $5. But as we begin to understand who the VIPs are and the higher echelon players, they might have one that says play 5 premium games and get $100. Because by knowing the segmentation and knowing what gets these players excited, it allows us to really delight and engage these players at every level with the appropriate kind of experience.
So to restate that, even though that those cohorts can retain very differently, that's a universal system that can apply to all and keep everyone engaged.
It applies to everybody, but it's very tailored, so the days of giving everybody the same offer and then, hoping that they respond, really doesn't work. Whether you are watching Netflix or shopping on Amazon or on Ticketmaster, all of your offers are targeted at you, has evolved that way, and it's gonna continue to evolve that way even more, I think, because that is really the key to monetization is tailoring everything the player's experience to the things that are most important to them as a player.
Absolutely. When you worked across toys, ed tech, and games, you touched on the Star Wars games that I loved. All spaces where emotional resonance is key. How does your experience with character brands like Leapfrog or Hasbro influence the way you design lifecycle or engagement systems for real money titles now?
I love this question because people always ask variations of it a different way. The golden rule is that a license can't be a crutch for poor gameplay. In some ways, a license is the fastest way to kill a game because it attracts lots of players. But often, if you have a license, you think you don't have to work as hard to make a fantastic game. I mean, there's been hundreds of Monopoly games built, but it took Monopoly Go to build like just a fantastic gaming experience that happens to be Monopoly, which is quite different than, just slapping a license on something. If when you take a license and you build a game, if it doesn't deliver, it will get dropped very fast. There's a famous story about Atari that in the is they made this ET based game and they thought it was going to be the biggest game ever. And it turned out that it didn't deliver and it was really poor. And they ended up staging a burial in New Mexico where they buried 700,000 Atari cult cartridges. That is the worst example. In traditional video games, a company would license a brand and then build a game around the license. Like I'm going to do James Bond and it becomes RPG or an action game. But in RMG, we have to start with the play pattern. We have to start with an experience that we know is going to be fantastic as a skill game, and then ask ourselves, can that game be enhanced by putting a license on it? Our Yahtzee game is a great example. The games team had a concept for a slot style experience where the player would spin the wheels and try and get the best hand, like poker. Once the concept was determined to be amazingly fun, they realized that this could work great with the Yahtzee brand since it was dice. And we work with Hasbro to get the license and really blended Yahtzee with that slot play pattern. And it's both very innovative, so it feels new and amazing, but it still feels true to Yahtzee. And that is the best way to marriage, a license with a gameplay pattern that's like wildly appealing to a large audience.
And one consistent theme that's come up, or one of many, is building trust in these conversations we've had with the user. Some of the user acquisition data that we've seen shows that trust signals and ad context matter a lot across cohorts. What's your take on the role of brand equity and recognizable IP in converting and retaining users in real money gaming, especially with price sensitive or ad skeptical audiences?
Well, we are spending a ton of time trying to better understand customers' attitudes around trust and the value of brand. What we've seen in, really the last year or two is that one of the biggest barriers to playing real money games is actually trust. People worry about cheating, they worry about fairness, are unsure about putting their credit card in to game companies that they're not familiar with. And, most of these game companies are not well known brands. And so, with the increased competition in the market and then the lack of knowledge around these brands, what you're seeing is that there's a lot of players out there, competitive players, that are doing these, like I call them cheap, cheerful, and cheesy advertising that are the gaming equivalent of payday loans that promise that players can pay their card payment, they can win thousands of dollars in a day, all things that are very difficult to do. And, we've been in business for 25 years and have a 5-star rating in the App Store, and we've priced out over $2 billion, almost $1 million a week. We can be counted on to provide a fair environment and protect customers' data and make withdrawals easy. And we work really hard to continue to emphasize that with our brand. I think you're going to see the good performers in the game space need to work on building their brand. Like, you're seeing more TV advertising for companies like ours. You're seeing more broad awareness marketing so that, when you think skill gaming, you think WorldWinner and you think trust. And I think we're going to continue to see this more important and be more and more important. And, I think that the other thing we're saying is that we can learn a lot from the daily fantasy sports and the sports book category. We at WorldWinner are in business with FanDuel. We operate FanDuel Face Off, and they are a fantastic example of a company that really focuses on customers' trust and responsible gaming. Um, we have learned that customers really care, and that is sort of one of the of the company is to be somebody that our customers can trust. And when they think world winner, they think best in class from a trust perspective.
Makes total sense. Taking that a step further, when you're thinking about player friction and how they respond, how do you think about progression pacing, streaks, leaderboards, things like that, to encourage monetization without pushing casuals too hard or boring the VIPs.
Yeah, the way I see it is it's all about segmentation. It's a little bit of a continuation of our previous discussion that we manage and look at every cohort, every segment individually, and it's not just about spend level, it's about their behavior and who they are. And we think that that's really the only way to get and keep players from all that are in all states of their life cycle, but also all different places in their user journey as a skill gaming gamer. And that can relate to our fair matching. It relates to our customer promise around making sure that our users are fairly matched at every stage of their life cycle and making sure that they're getting a fair shot at winning the right amount of rewards and goals and generosity sort of every step of the way, because players have to feel like the game is fair, but also that it's custom for them. And gamers are pretty sophisticated now. Like they understand the compulsion loops that game companies put. They understand the notion of all the different kind of monetization features that exist. And so your product has to feel authentic and trustworthy, and they have to be able to like really sense the value equation, and that we're giving them value for their time and their money because they really think that way.
Totally. Really appreciate the time. Obviously, you had some great stories in there. I'm sure we'll have some treasure hunters heading to New Mexico as we speak to unearth what's probably valuable now in those ET cartridges. But where can the people find you, and is there anything cool you're working on that you want to promote?
Well, I mean, we're always selling our games and products, so we're always promoting. But if you want to check out our product, you can go to worldwinner.com and you can download it on iOS or Android or play it on the web. And we have a free experience. So for those of you that don't want to deposit, you can begin playing immediately. And we're the only place where you can play Wheel of Fortune for real money online. So go check it out.
Very cool. Thank you so much.
You're welcome. Thanks a lot. Take care.